Hi, this is Patsy with a Z. Welcome to Joy on Paper Live, a program for writers and those who dream of writing, and for everyone who wants to know the story behind the book. And today I have a very special guest, Lynn Hightower, and she is a New York Times notable author, London Times best-selling author. She's won the Shamus Award, and she's also a writing coach, and she consults on manuscripts. So I am so happy to welcome you to Joy on Paper Live. Lynn Hightower, hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Patsy?
Okay, things happen. And
Things always happen when I do interviews for this scary book. I've done signings where we just lost all the power and everything went dark. It happens.
things happen. Things happen. And
Hmm.
maybe that's a good sign. It means you've really gotten to us with, with this book because this is wonderful. The Hunting Dark is book two in the Enlightenment Project series, and it
Hmm.
is so good. And I mentioned to you before that I started reading it in the afternoon, sometime around my tea time, and I kept reading it through, and I finished it just before 2 o'clock at night. And it is one of I. This is a big compliment. It is one of the creepiest books I've ever read.
Thank you. I just love hearing that. And
I
I
mean,
will tell you that I got scared many times while I was writing it. And it was very good to have a giant German Shepherd curled up on the bed with me. And there's nothing like having the dog suddenly get up, look across the room at something you can't see, and just bark her little head off. And okay, I got it, Mom. You can get back to work. It's terrifying.
and what is terrifying about it is really it is based on a true stories, things that
Yes.
you actually discovered, and somebody brought it to your attention, and boy, oh boy, you ran with it. And of course,
Yeah,
in
it was just it was a
it,
gift. It was a gift. It was a haunted house and a haunted school, both maybe within 30 miles of each other. And it felt very connected to me. And we are talking about weird and scary things happen when I went to interview the people that lived in the house. They said they would take me to the house. They didn't live there anymore. And I said, no, from everything you've told me, I actually don't want to go in it. You can show me the pictures, you can tell me your story, and I can just make stuff up. But when I was on the road going to talk to them and interview them, my car had just been serviced and I was bombing down the interstate and it started making a really horrible noise and I'm not very good with mechanics and it was scary and so the first exit was pretty creepy. And there wasn't a lot there, but I felt like I needed to get off the road. And I used this very exit in the novel. And everything that happened to Noah at that exit happened to me. Some things you don't have to make up. There's a gift, a kind of horrible gift. And it turned out that one of the lights on the side of the car had come out of the socket and was bouncing against the door. So I bought some tape and I just taped it as best as I could. When I met with the people, I told them about it and they said, "Oh, wait, what? Was it exit 71?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Oh my God, that's where the house is." I'm thinking, oh, so where you were just lured on to that exit. It was really scary. And they took me to the haunted school too.
let's step back now because in book one you introduce Noah, who
Yes.
is a brain surgeon, and he's doing surgery in the first chapter. And
Yeah.
it's
Surgery.
yeah, you're doing, and you write about it. It's right there. You get a little creeped out. But
You do. Yeah.
so, where did you get the idea to use this character, Noah? Explain more about him. How this guy came into your head? Feels like he's full blown. Like he's a real. I feel
He
so
feels
much that he's
real to me.
real.
I think Noah exists and he just kindly let me tell his stories. He's so real to me. I hear his voice in my head. I know how he feels. I know all about his life. I know his mother. Okay. I know his wife and his kids and his dog and his cat. And you know what I love about him is he really is when your back is to the wall and there's no one that can help you because if you think you're possessed or there's something dark that's haunting you, really where do you go with that? Okay, there are not a lot of options, and you go to a psychiatrist, there's hoops they put you through and they may not help you. You go to the Catholic Church, there's hoops they put you through, they may not help you. You may not be a believer in religion, you may not be a believer in psychiatrists, and none of them really know what to do. But Noah does, because even though he is very much a man of science and he would like not to believe in any of this, he was possessed as a child at the age of 11 when his father died, and he was very vulnerable. And what got me started on that was watching The Exorcist and realizing it was based on a true story. And I always wondered, what happened to that kid? How did he survive? And it turns out he survived very well. And he went to work for NASA. He had kids of his own. He never spoke about it afterward. The people that did the exorcism did not fare all that well. The priests, I could be wrong, but I think the priests died fairly soon after. The hospital where they did the exorcisms, they sealed off the room and they auctioned off all the furniture that was in there. And anybody that bought that furniture wound up having problems with hauntings. And when I did a lot of research on exorcisms, I came up with the statistic that 80% really involve the dark infestation of a house. Possession happens, it's not that common, but usually there's something in a house and it's almost like it's overrun with this dark infestation. And that's what most priests do when they exorcise things. They exorcise the house.
And of course, you mentioned that there was a house and there was a school. And the school you did
Mhm.
visit.
I did visit the school. It was so interesting to me because anybody that taught there for a while knew to get out before dark because creepy things would happen, and nobody would tell the new teachers. So I talked to someone who'd been a new teacher and now is a veteran, and she said, "Yeah, it usually takes 2 nights working late after dark, and after that they never come back." And she told me that she was in the school after dark. She had a very big dog with her, a very fierce dog with her. And uh, she heard something slam against the door and the dog went ballistic. So it scared her. And she packed up all her stuff and grabbed hold of her dog, and it was a pit bull, and which are usually very sweet dogs, but they can be very protective. And she opens the door, and the lights that are all supposed to be on are out. And they're the kind of light where you pass in the hall and they all come on, and nothing came on. And she said that something was standing beside her. She could feel it. The dog was losing its mind. She could smell it. She said it had a terrible smell, and she just dropped all her papers and grabbed the dog and ran out the door and never went back after dark. And she started talking to one of the male teachers, and they just hinted around. And he said that he had worked late a couple of times, and he would kept hearing people laughing from the copy room. The copy room is in a very creepy place in the old part of the school. If you walk into the school, that's the part that's new, it feels very normal, very nice, very light. It's not scary. So when they took me through, I'm like, I don't feel anything. And then you turn a corner to the old part of the school, and the corridor gets very narrow and it slants down, and it's very dank and it's very humid. And it feels horrible the minute you turn that corner. There's the front desk where there are monitors, where there are cameras all through the school. And you look at the monitors. We went there at dusk and I'm looking at the monitors and I'm thinking, is there anybody in the cafeteria? Because I keep seeing something pass in front. And they look and go, no, there's nobody in there, but I saw what you just saw. Do you want to go look? And I said, no, I don't. Thank you so much. And then she showed me where the copy room was, just off in a corner way in the back. And she said, this male teacher said that he kept hearing people laughing in there because he was using the copy machine in the office. And he kept hearing people laughing like right outside the door. And he thought it was his coworkers and they were playing jokes on him. He wasn't scared. So he would come out into the office and say, hey, what's going on? There's nobody out there. There's nobody in the school. The laughter stops. He goes to finish his copying and it starts up again. And he goes out there and there isn't anybody. He's, okay, that's it. I'm out. I'm going. And they all just hint around and then they tell each other their experiences. And there's one teacher there that says, yeah, I lock my door when I get all the kids in. I lock the door. And sometimes something slams against the door when I'm teaching. And the kids and I don't even go to the door anymore. I've gone, there's nothing there, and we don't go to the door. And I don't leave like we used to have mice or gerbils, but I got worried about them and I took them home because I'm not leaving them overnight in that place. Pretty scary
So,
stuff.
okay,
Crazy.
so,
It's just
you know,
like at dusk, all the teachers leave, right? It's starting to get dark. They've got extra work. They want to work late, but they don't. And they just make a beeline for the parking lot. It's like a race to get out of the school, just as things are turning dark.
so here we have when you decided to write this, and of course you're writing it in the first person as Noah, and in the second book, of course, it has very ominous. I love one of the like the opening line. It's in the first paragraph. It says, "Looking forward," which is just a little bit in italics there. Looking forward, and we know we're in for something exciting in this book.
Yeah, thank you. I liked if you talk to priests who do exorcisms, they say that when they're getting ready to get in the car and go to do one, that whatever presence it is will sometimes send them a text and say, "Are you coming? You're not gonna. I'm going to kill you when you get there. Your car is gonna wreck." Just threats. And so the idea that whatever this dark presence is sends a text really makes sense because there's always so much electronics involved in this kind of stuff. Lights go on and off. You lost your power. I did a signing and the power went out in the bookstore. What can I tell you? It does seem weirdly suspicious.
And those two words, how'd you come out with those two words? Because they work perfectly.
I was planning the novel and I still had a lot left to plan, but I knew a lot about the house. And the opening line of the novel just came to me where I just would say, in the Amish countryside of Kentucky, there is a house and everybody knows about it. And they whisper about the things that happen there, creepy things, terrible things. And I just wrote everything I knew about the house, which sounds like I was making it all up, but I didn't have to. It was easy. And then it just came into my head. I could almost hear it looking forward. And I'm like, okay, I'm channeling this, which is good at those and the bad news, right? Um, and then it sends the text. And then the next scene, you have Noah getting a text, right? And it's looking forward. So you, the reader, know where it came from. He doesn't, but you do. And then everything blows up. Yeah.
Everything does in Noah's life. So let's talk a little bit about his background. Of course, talk a little bit about what happened to him as a child, and then when he's now in the second book, he's married, he has a wife and children, and a dog and a
Hmm.
cat. So
Hmm.
tell us more about Noah.
He's a man of science and he believes in the dark things and he's got a lot of compassion and empathy because he's been there and he knows how terrifying it is and he wants to help. So he and the priest who helped him when he was 11 who did exorcisms with him started their own NGO in this book called the Enlightenment Project Inc. because in the first book, what he's trying to do is map the parts of the brain where we have our spiritual stimulation. Our brain is hardwired for spirituality, and these neurons are all over the brain. And he felt that instead of exorcisms and priests and religion, he'd like to find a scientific way to cure people of possession or of whatever is haunting them and it's effective in some ways and it also strengthens it in others so it's going to make you better or it's going to make you worse, right? Because it's very real and it's very there, and I find the science of quantum biology very interesting because this phrase, this science fact terrifies me, and it's 85% of the universe is dark matter. For someone like me, that's, oh no, what is dark matter? What kind of threat is it? 85% of the universe could be this creepy threat. And what Noah says in the opening is, if that thrills you, you're not thinking it through. My youngest daughter's favorite subject is physics. So she will run me through all the new science and all the possibilities. And we both came to the conclusion that possession is also a form of just entanglement, one proton to another. And possession is an entanglement where you are entangled with this dark side. And Noah is always looking for scientific ways to free you from that. And he does a pretty good job of it. But what he does is he combines the science with the priest exorcisms. You don't get it one way, you're going to get it the other. So,
And you mentioned electricity, that it, because I believe there's all this electrical charges going on around us all the time, and
all the time.
we don't know what's happening, and that all of that, so that kind of thing is a possibility. I You told me before the story about you seen the movie The Exorcist, which
Mhm.
when you got to this new story, tell us about when you saw that movie.
It was a long time ago. I was very young, and it was in Kentucky, and we have quite a lot of tornadoes here. And we had a massive tornado come through while I was watching the movie. And this particular movie theater had its own generator. So instead of saying, hey, everybody, you better go home, there's a tornado, they just kept the movie going when all the lights and the power went out in the city. In this one spot, they were still playing The Exorcist, and I was sitting there watching it, and which is insane. And then you come out of the theater to this surreal cityscape. There's no lights, there's no cars, everybody's gone. And you're like, what happened? Where is everybody? So we got in the car to go home, and we were pulled over by a police officer who said, you need to take cover. You need to get off the road. There's a tornado coming through, like minutes. So we did. And so it made a really big impression on me. So the movie was terrifying. The tornado was terrifying. And then I read the book, which was even better. The book was so good. So when I did research and I found out that the book was based on true events and a true haunting, then I started thinking about what happened to the boy it was really based on. What kind of life did he have? How did he grow up? And he had a good life. He had a family, he had kids, he worked at NASA, but he never spoke about it. I found that fascinating. And then I ran across the last book by M. Scott Peck, who wrote People of the Lie. And did you know M. Scott Peck did exorcisms at the end of his career? He didn't believe in it. He thought it was just a psychiatric condition. And so he worked with a couple of patients who felt they were possessed. And he came to the conclusion that whatever was coming after them was not internal, it was external. Okay. And so he did his own exorcisms, and one of the patients was freed and did well, and the other one never did escape. I found it was very interesting that M. Scott Peck went from total non believer to believer. So if you look at the DSM, which lists all the psychiatric conditions, under disassociation, which is the new word for multiple personality, they have a subcategory under research. So I'm not telling you that the psychiatric community has embraced possession and exorcism and absolutely say it's real. What they do say is, "Oh, we're looking into it. We have no idea." Okay? At least they're trying. Got to give them that. And I talked to a psychiatrist about it, and they said that the evaluation is this: is it internal? Is it a physical condition? Is it a brain tumor? Is it a psychiatric condition? Is it a psychosis? Or does it seem to be coming externally? And this comes externally, and they just can't explain it. But at least they're trying.
Now, in the first book, of course, Noah is young. He goes through an exorcism,
Yes.
and
Yes.
with who does?
With Perry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
The priest.
this carries through. But put him through when you put him through the exorcism, that was some great writing there.
Thank you. The exorcisms that Noah and Perry do are constantly evolving from book to book because they're looking at quantum biology. They're looking at how to stimulate the brain and to heal. And while I was writing the book, my German Shepherd hurt her hip, and my vet had this very nice laser treatment that just focused on all the tissue and just started the healing process very quickly. And in about 2 or 3 weeks, she did great. I think she had about two, and it was a bad injury, and she healed up very fast. And I was terribly impressed. And I thought, well, I'm going to incorporate this into my exorcisms, but I'm going to have Noah and Perry use these lasers on parts of the brain, the spiritual parts of the brain, to generate a healing. And so that plus the spiritual side just combined together makes a big difference. I thank my dog and I thank my vet for explaining it to me. But I really think that basically what people are looking for is a healing of whatever is haunting them. And this stimulates the brain to help them heal, and the spiritual parts of the exorcism, which don't have to be particularly connected to any specific religion, also enhance. It's called quantum spirituality, and I find quantum everything absolutely fascinating.
It is, and as part of this whole NGO, they're starting bringing people in to help them.
Yeah.
All of this and some of the scientific ideas that you've incorporated are fascinating.
Thank you. And they're all based on research and real things that are going on, and
Brain scans and all of that.
brain scans, MRIs, because they're trying to track where in the brain the possession is affecting the person. And if they can find a way to stimulate the neurons there to heal them, then Noah thinks, I don't even need a priest. I can just stimulate. And they're doing this. They do it for depression. Stanford does this kind of neurological treatment where they stimulate certain parts of the brain. And it works really well. The only problem is if there's something there, it doesn't just stimulate the parts of the brain that heals, it stimulates the dark things that are causing the issue. So you may come out worse than you were when you went in.
And they do. They have these caps that they put on their heads. They measure everything, every
Yep.
thought process. So there's a lot
The
going on in the
science,
world.
yeah, the science part of it is fascinating. You can't, too many people have these issues to just write it off. So I would really rather they looked at the hardcore science, the physical science part of it, not give them a antipsychotic drug if they're not really psychotic. I just think there's so much to learn about this.
There is, and they are doing some great research, and it's not a coincidence that it's being done in Stanford because all of those people, all of the big shots in Silicon Valley want they want to live. I have a couple of books.
Wanna live forever.
They do. They really want to live forever. And they are doing all sorts of things to figure out the mind. And so they're putting a lot of money into that kind of research. A great deal.
Yeah, yeah, and it's absolutely fascinating, and I really think the laser treatments are really effective, and I think they would really be effective in the brain. But I also think what Noah realizes, and in this second thing, is so many neurons and so much emotion and so many psychological issues happen in the gut. And there are more neurons in the gut than there are in the brain, and they connect, right? There's a loop of connection. And it's my opinion, based on the wisdom of a novelist, that a lot of the healing for cognitive decline, for Alzheimer's, for depression, I think they're looking in the wrong place. I think they need to go to the gut. I'm not the only one that thinks this. And that's what Noah thinks. So when he does his laser treatment and stimulation of the brain neurons, he also starts doing the gut neurons at the same time, along with the spiritual exorcism. And Perry does exorcisms very differently from your average priest. Uh, he doesn't do it as I must know the name of the demon, and once you know the name of the demon, it goes, which to me seems, I don't want to say ridiculous, but that is what I think. Oh, come on, tell me your name and you're gone, please. He actually ignores that. What he wants to do is say to you, You do not have to listen to this. You do not have to be a part of this. You have autonomy over your body and your brain. You can find your way out. I can help you. That and the physical treatments. And I think it just is like a one, two, three approach that I think would be very effective. And that's what their NGO, the Enlightenment Project Inc., does.
One of the great things about the book is you weave this science into a really a story, a very human story. We have Noah's
Yes.
wife, Moira, and
Yeah.
his two boys, as I said, the cat and the dog, who play an integral role in this, and always, and of course his niece Elle, who also has a big part in it. And I will say that there's lots of creepy parts to this, but let's talk a
Mhm.
little bit about Elle first, because she's a great character through the book.
I love Elle. She is confident and forceful. The a lot of what these books are about is the medical profession and how people are left high and dry, really, when they're in trouble. There are a lot of really great doctors, there are a lot of great psychiatrists, but there's a lot of people that get chewed up in the system. And Elle is a psychiatric physician's assistant, and she's working for a very evil neuropsych. And his one of the things he likes to do, and I researched this, and it happens more often than you would like, is he just puts people in 72-hour lockdown that shouldn't be, so he can bill it out. And it's almost if they're on Medicaid, it's like a Medicaid fraud thing with him, and he likes the power. And so she knows he's doing that and she wants to bring him to justice, but bringing a powerful doctor to justice is not an easy thing to do. And one of her patients lives in that haunted house and has called for help and has been treated by Elle, but she's there. Her husband has disappeared from the basement. It's all very scary. The hauntings are happening. She's alone with children. So she calls the suicide helpline. And she did have a suicide attempt when she was in college. So she has a history. A lot of people don't know that when you call the suicide helpline, there is an algorithm that may send emergency services to your home and you won't know it, to help you. And there are a lot of arguments for and against. So you're left to make up your mind about that. But when that happens, she gets afraid for her. She's afraid she'll be put in lockdown and her children will be put in foster care. So she calls her mental health professional for help, and Elle goes out to help her. And when she gets there, the haunting is in full force. The lights are going on and off in the house. The doors are opening and closing, which really is terrifying. And Pammy has an infant and she's got a little boy. And so they get all the kids in the car, but Elle's dog gets out and goes chasing after something at the house. And the cat gets left in there and they've got to get the kids out. So what happens is a police officer comes to help, and she knows both Elle and Pammy, and she says, "Look, I'll investigate it. I'll round up your pets. You get these kids out of here." They leave, and then they try to call and see that she's okay. And as it turns out, she disappears. The police send two other patrol cars out there. They find her car with the door open. Her flashlight is missing. They find her flashlight in the crawl space in the basement, but she's gone.
Ah, so now we have something else to be creeped out about. And then there's another character. I don't know how much we want to say because it comes as a bit of a surprise. And I will
Yeah.
say, Sasha.
Oh, Sasha. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, Sasha is I was looking into a can I tell this AI robots for children? And I was absolutely horrified by the very dark possibilities.
That's all we have
But
to say. Let's
that's
not
all we
say
have
too
to
much. Just,
say. Let's not say any more, but Sasha is one of the scariest parts of the novel.
well, it comes as quite a surprise. Let's just put it that way. And
Yeah.
it's very good. It's very good. And there's so
Thank
much. There's so much. I love the connection to World War I. I love all. I love also the connection that Noah ends up going to France because there's a similar incidents are happening in France.
Similar incidents happened after World War I at this place in France. and they happened to one of Elle's relatives, who was her great uncle, who's based on my own great uncle who went to France at the end of World War One, just like this character did. And he wound up falling in love with a very young French girl and staying to farm. He farmed, a sheep farmer, and he had lambs, and they had a small farm, and the father and brother died in the war, and he comes and he falls in love with this girl, and her mother's there, and they run the farm together. And then this little village in France, things start happening there just like they're happening in the small town in Kentucky, and he's the connection, the Kentucky French connection, and Elle goes to check it out.
And it's a great story from there. So
Yeah.
altogether, the both books are a wonderful read, really great, perfect
Thanks.
reading. I you get into these books, they are, when, let's say, they're gripping in a way that you almost feel like something's going to come. I'm sitting in my very comfy chair at 2 in the morning, and I do think of the word gripping, and I'm like, so so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it'll have you looking over your shoulder. You should read it with a big dog and all the lights on.
I wish I had one. So this is, of course, this book is quite a change from your other books. Quite different. Of course, the last
Yeah,
time you were on the radio program, we were talking about The Beautiful Risk, which is a completely different story set in
absolutely.
Switzerland, but it has something familiar for you. It has a dog, and you're always happy
It
when you're writing
does.
about a dog. And
Yeah.
Leo, of course, steals that book.
Yes, Leo is her hearing assistance dog, a giant German shepherd that looks like a wolf, based on my own Leo, who I rescued from a very terrible place and took home with me. And within 2 weeks, when my husband was out of town, I was working late. It was midnight, and Leo was playing. He was maybe about 10 months old when I rescued him, already huge. He was playing with his stuffed bear. It was his very first toy, and he loved it. And I heard a scrape under my window, and there were two men in hoodies. And before I could even register what was happening, Leo went ballistic. I thought he was going through the window and then through the door. They took off running, and I thought he was going through the door. He was so fierce and so protective. And then when they were gone, he just went back to playing with the little bear. And I thought, wow, I thought I rescued you, big boy, but evidently you rescued me. And he was quite terrifying to look at. He was a very good boy. He was very protective. And so Leo in the book is a mix of him and then my own Leah, who's asleep over there. And she's a big German Shepherd too, not as big as Leo, who was gigantic. She's only 100 pounds. And she's my hearing assistance dog. I have a significant hearing loss, just like Junie Lagarde does in my book, The Beautiful Risk. I had always kept it a secret because it made me feel vulnerable and I didn't want people to know. And then I wrote about Junie, who was very opinionated about her hearing loss and educated people when they didn't understand or gave her a hard time. And I was so thrilled with her. I thought, yeah, I'll do the same thing. And I found that when you tell people you have a hearing loss, the terrible thing that happens is they're like, oh, how can I help? And I'm like, oh, okay. Because I would go ride in this fabulous Ukrainian coffee shop we have here in Lexington. And they would always ask me, I would order my coffee and then I'd start writing, and they'd say to me, "Why do you never come get your coffee when we call out your name? Don't you like our coffee?" And I said, "I have a hearing loss and I can't hear you." And they said, "Oh." And so the terrible thing that happened was they just bring me my coffee. So,
so 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 it all
yeah,
works out. Of
it
course,
all worked.
there's another book coming up with
Yes,
Junie
a new
and
Junie
Leo.
Lagarde book. It'll be out June the 3rd. So just a few months away. It's called Spies in Plain Sight. And this one is a wild ride. You are going to hit the ground running with this one, and it isn't going to stop. And part of it takes place during the Venetian Carnival in Annecy, France. And I did go to the carnival, and it was fabulous. And it's so cool. People are in Venetian dress and costumes all over the city, and had a really bad ankle injury, and I was all set to go to the carnival, and I just thought, just strap it up and go. You got to do it. You got this book due. I'm going all through the city with this terrible ankle injury. It's very painful. And so I thought I'll give it to Junie. So she has a terrible ankle injury in the book. And it's because it's like cobblestones and ankle injuries in medieval cities don't really go
No,
together.
they don't. They don't.
And I was, you feel so vulnerable when you hurt your ankle because you lose your balance. So I thought, all right, if I've got to put up with it, so does she. It makes her vulnerable.
That's it.
And
Oh, it's wonderful what writers can do because writers are the gods when it comes to
I
storytelling.
know, and I
Well, not
consider all of
always.
it a gift.
Sometimes, though, you think you are, but then sometimes these characters do invade you. And sometimes
Oh
they
no,
lead you
it's
in a
they're
direction
real.
that you didn't expect.
You know what my theory is on novels? Okay, we know that time is always beginning, middle, end. It's all, I don't understand it, but it doesn't really happen in chronological order like we see it, right? So I will tell you, and all my novelists, all you novelists out there, when you're afraid that, what if you don't come up with enough plot? What if your book doesn't work? I will tell you that book is already written and it's just all around you because you already wrote it at one point
Ah,
in your, it exists. I believe it exists. It's a creative entity that belongs to you and you're pulling the threads, right?
and this
You
is
just keep
coming
pulling
from
the
this is
threads.
coming from the writing
Yeah,
coach and
you betcha.
manuscript consulting expert. I wanted to
Yes.
show everybody this. So you can go to Lynn Hightower's website, and it's right there. And you can go there and you will find out that she, in addition to all the books she's written and the new books and this wonderful series, The Enlightenment Project, she's also a writing coach because, well, she should be. She said, when you're a New York Times notable author, you should be a writing coach. And there you are. So tell us a little bit about your coaching services and about what you
Mhm.
do to help people finish their manuscripts.
Okay, so I really think that everybody should be writing a novel. It's part of being a creative human being. Now, if you don't want to write a novel, by all means, do something else. But I don't think writing novels is just for the cool kids. I don't think anyone should be discouraged. I think we should all do it. It's a wonderful way to have a creative life. I work with you novelist to novelist because there are things that took me 10 years to learn the hard way that I could tell you in 5 minutes because it's really not rocket science. It just has to be on your radar. So I tell my writers all of the things I learned the hard way, and they can learn it so fast. I talk to them. I really think for this kind of thing, you do have to work novelist to novelist because I live this life, right? And so when they say, I'm having this issue, I can say, yeah, me too. Here's what you do, right? And I love working with writers. I love watching their novels grow up. I like talking to them about spitballing to help them. We talk about the plot, what works, what doesn't work. We talk about process. One of the great things about writing, as long as I have, is just that I know I'm going to figure it out. So I don't panic. I don't get upset. Earlier in my career, I had times when I would sob in the floor over note cards and think, oh, it's a mess. I'm never going to figure it out. Now I'm just like, nah, you'll figure it out. So just pick back up in the morning. And if I can tell you that so you don't panic, then you can enjoy your work. So I talk about technique, storytelling, character, process. So here's what I'm telling my writers right now. Two things. One, writers need time to think. I have a very early morning writing session around 4 a.m. because I just wake up then. And I think about my novel and I might do a little research and I might play some online backgammon while I'm thinking about it. And just as I'm thinking, you're not getting anywhere, suddenly I will get bits of scene, bits of plot, bits of character, the essence of the story, and I just write it all down in notes. And it's because I was willing to be still with the work and allow myself time to think and not put myself under the pressure of what have you accomplished? How many pages have you written? What have you plotted out? No, it's just like, you know what? Take those mean voices and throw them away and just allow yourself to be still. You'll be amazed at the creative momentum you get and the fabulous things you come up with. And you don't have to write a scene in chronological order. I might get a paragraph of one scene and a part of another. And I'm good with that because I know I'll go back and work it through. I'll have another session where I'm doing the hardcore writing, but that writing is sourced in the think session from the morning. So don't be afraid to let yourself think. Okay. And one other thing I'm talking about with all of my client is these secrets of popcorn pacing. Now, popcorn pacing sounds like a derogatory term, and it's not. It's a fabulous term for every writer. You should be. Have you ever seen anybody that really loves popcorn at the movies? My husband used to do this. He'd have this big bucket of popcorn, and he would just like one handful after another handful, and it just looked like, oh, it's so good. It's hot and buttery, and they're watching the movie and they're cramming popcorn in their mouth and they're loving it and it's going fast. And that's how you need to pace your books. Popcorn pacing. Move it fast. When I'm writing now that I'm using this, I'll think, I don't want to set all this up for 60 pages. I just want to get there now. And then a little voice in my head says, then do it. Go right there. And you can, with transition and summary information, you can go right to the next cool thing. If it's the next cool thing for you, it's the next cool thing for the reader. Give yourself permission to run with it. So I talk to my clients about popcorn pacing, and it's having a really good effect on their stories and on mine.
Wow, that's clever. That's very clever. I like that. I like the idea. People can
Yeah,
visualize it. It's always great to have
yeah.
something.
It just makes the story go so fast because 'cause you're having fun writing it, and you don't sit around with all the stuff that's dreary. You just go like, skipping on to the next thing, we'll transition right in.
And also, it's important. It's funny. I tell right now, it's of course it's November, and some of my listeners on the radio and viewers on the YouTube channel are doing NaNoWriMo. And I get the funniest emails from them. Some have they've made it this far. We're getting almost to the end of the month, which is it's good because these are people who have wanted to write, but they've always thought they couldn't do it. They wouldn't have the ability to sit down, and they're teaching
Oh,
themselves this.
yes.
I've explained to them, "You're not gonna have a book at the end that you're gonna publish. It's not that's not the way it
Yep.
works."
Well,
Because
I've worked with a lot of clients who will do a draft in Nano, and then they come to me and like, "All right, now what do I do?" You know?
exactly. That's one of the reasons I wanted you on at this time of the year, because this is a
Mhm.
good time for people. They're gonna finish it. The first year I did this 9 years ago when I started the program, and I encouraged people. I did have a man who on December 4th, 4 days after the end of November, he emailed me. He said, "I finished it. I won. Now, what publisher should I send it to?"
I did this. I felt the same way when I finished my first book. Someone said to me, "Do you want to do revisions?" I'm like, "No. Why would I?" No, I understand that frame of mind, but you want to take the story to the best place you can. And I work with writers a lot on clarity. I don't see anybody talk about clarity very much, but it's in your head and you know it, but it has to be on the page so the reader understands, because if they're confused about what's going on, it takes them out of the story and then you got to get them back in. So clarity is a really big issue, and it's good because I'm reading your pages and we're talking about it and I'm like, I got confused here, rework that. My editor works on that with me. She's, wait a minute, I got confused here. This is a little convoluted. So rework that section. She's got the most brilliant storytelling eye. I'm grateful to be working with her. I think we all need that. And not only can I tell you, and this is where the novelist comes in, not only can I tell you what's not working, I can tell you how to fix it. Okay. So, like, my editor and my agent can tell me what's not working, but they're not novelists. They can't tell me how to fix it, right? So you need to talk to a novelist on technique because it's not really that hard. It's not rocket science. It's just, yeah, I screwed it up, I screwed it up, I screwed it up, and then I figured it out. So you don't have to screw it up 10 times. I can tell you how to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and exactly. A working and a very successful and notable author has a good
Yeah.
eye. That's for sure. I didn't even take any time to read all of the wonderful blurbs that you've gotten for your books because you have
Oh, thank you.
I could spend like an hour just reading your blurbs, but you have so many. Really,
Thanks.
your writing is at such a wonderful level. It's really great. It captivates people, and you know what you're talking about. And and new authors, they really need that kind of help. They need somebody who can point them in the right direction, get them thinking the right way. And meanwhile, everybody who wants to be a writer, they should be reading, and not just in the genre. And if you're going to write, you want to write cozy mysteries, don't just read cozy mysteries, read classics or read nonfiction.
I'll read anybody that entertains me and keeps me hooked, and if you don't, I'll throw your book away. Get on it. I just don't have I used to feel like I had to read from beginning to end, but if you lose me, I'm just not gonna give you any more of my time, and I don't mean that unkindly, it could be just me. But I think your job as a novelist to keep people completely engaged all the way through and to deliver delicious things for them to read, okay? It's like giving them chocolate truffles all through the books. You're going to give them excitement. You're going to give them good food. You're going to give them sex. You're going to give them adventure. You're just going to give them a really great dog in the book. Leo steals the show in the Junie Lagarde novels, as he should. He's fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love delicious, that word delicious writing. Recently I interviewed a guy. It's
You're
a his
feeding,
book
you're
is a very
feeding your
his book is very
yes.
tough and very it's really strong. And I said to him,
Mhm.
"Oh, it's delicious." And he was like so
Oh,
shocked.
cute.
Why? I didn't expect anybody to call it. I said, it's such a treat. I'm reading it and it's just delicious. I love it." And
I want it to be a full course meal. I want you to have an appetizer. I want you to have a drink. I want you to have a cocktail. I want you to have a full meal. I want you to have dessert. I want you to have a macaroon after it. I want you to have some fabulous coffee. I want my book to be just the whole thing. I want you to take everything in it because why not? Why not give readers the kind of scenes? It's like we read so that we're not alone. And we also read because, oh, your characters can say things that you wish you'd said in real life or and defended yourself when you really just wandered sadly away. If the hero or heroine can do that, you're like, yes, that's me. I'm living vicariously through
exactly. And a little bit of a amuse bouche, something that
you.
some tasty little morsel that just perks you up.
Yes, yes, that's just fun, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Lynn, it's just wonderful that I got to talk to you. As I said, particularly this time of year, I think that both of the books in the new series, this is a perfect time of year to read them. Just snuggle up, everybody, get your blankie, and be ready. And it's her website
Okay.
is Lynn Tower. It should be lynntower.com, of course. Lynntower.com. You can go there. You can see more about her books and about her services, and people can just contact you, right?
Yeah, lynnhightower.com. Mm-hmm.
And find out. And if you're finishing up a book, and I don't know at which point you think people should get in touch
I
with
have
you.
people come to me before they start writing. I have people come to me often when they're about like 100 pages and they run out of steam. I have people that finish the book and they're like, but it's not right yet, and I need you to help me take it. I work with people wherever you are. If you're coming up with a concept, if you've got a finished novel, and I have a lot of writers, some get published and they come back. They said, oh, can I come back for the next one? I'm like, yes, you may come back for every single book. Okay. So I have a lot of plans I just tailor for the writer. Some that are very affordable, where you keep your momentum going by sending me pages at regular deadlines, because a lot of people like that, and some people who want to hit the ground running and they want zooms. The zooms are great because we're talking about the plot, we're talking about the characters. We might read some of it aloud and go over notes. So really it's however you like to work. Some clients don't want zooms, some clients want lots of zooms. It's really about your own process, which we respect, and your vision for the book.
Everybody, this new book, The Hunting Dark. And every once in a while, I was calling it The Haunting Dark, but
They both apply, both apply.
they do, and it's available, of course, on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever books are sold. It's a wonderful read. Just thank you so much for joining me today and talking about this series, and I'm waiting forward to the next one coming out in next June, right?
June, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you again for joining me today. Lynn Hightower, you are absolutely very notable. So,
Thank you. That's very kind.
okay. Bye bye now. Bye. It was so much fun to talk to Lynn Hightower about her books and about her writing services. So if you have finished your book or you're in the middle of it or if you're stuck, do go to her website, lynnhightower.com, and you can read all about the services she offers. But also make sure you get this book. It's a great read. I think it's perfect for this time of the year, especially you just cozy up in your favorite reading chair and you have some nice hot chocolate and you start reading this. It's just sometimes you get these books that are just filled with characters that you will never forget, and really lots of fun to read. So please get Lynn's new book, both of the books in this wonderful new, it's a two-book series, I think, but I don't know. But again, it's a great book. I hope you'll get it, and it's called The Hunting Dark. And meanwhile, please subscribe to Joy on Paper Live so that I can bring you more interviews with interesting authors, because you learn so much. You pay a lot for these master classes and all of these super classes or whatever they have all over the place now. And you pay a lot of money for them. Some of them are absolutely great, but if you're already struggling, I don't want to think of you getting in debt to learn how to write, because you can learn how to write on your own and you can do it without getting into debt, but you can be inspired by the interviews with the authors that I have talked to, because they know about writing, and you will discover their enthusiasm, and that will carry you through to your writing experience. So please subscribe to Joy on Paper Live and make sure that you like, share, and make a comment, because authors need comments. They work sometimes years on a book, and they really appreciate getting a nice comment. And by the way, the Amazon and YouTube algorithm also appreciates when you make comments. So if you're buying the book on Amazon, do a review. And if you're watching this interview, make a comment and make an author happy today. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye now.